Friends, listeners, today I want to share a story with you. It's a story about the kind of connection that doesn't just touch a life, but utterly transforms it. It's about a dog, a beautiful pit bull mix, who faced a future so bleak it's hard to imagine, and a little girl whose pure heart saw past the fear and grime to the gentle soul within. This is the story of Lucy, and how a single, innocent choice rewrote her destiny, reminding us that hope can bloom in the most desolate of places. Lucy began her journey not as a cherished companion, but as a wanderer, a shadow navigating the harsh realities of city streets. Her world was a tapestry woven with the threads of survival, the constant search for scraps of food in overflowing dumpsters behind bustling diners, the desperate hunt for shelter from the biting winter winds beneath the sagging porches of abandoned houses, or the brief, stolen warmth of a sunbeam on a cold sidewalk. Each day was a relentless cycle of hunger, fear, and an aching loneliness that gnawed at her more fiercely than any physical discomfort. She learned the geography of her urban wilderness with a keen intelligence born of necessity. She knew which alleys were most likely to yield a discarded half-eaten sandwich, which parks had leaky faucets for a precious drink of water, and which shopkeepers would shoo her away with a broom and a harsh word. Humans, she discovered, were a bewildering mix. Some would offer a fleeting pat or a kind word, a momentary oasis of warmth that made her tail thump hopefully against the pavement. But many more would recoil, their faces tight with suspicion or fear, their steps quickening to put distance between themselves and the stray. Lucy, with her brindle coat often matted with dust and her ribs sometimes a little too visible beneath her skin, tried her best. She would wag her tail with an almost desperate enthusiasm, her amber eyes pleading for a connection, a sign of acceptance. She'd learned to make herself small, to approach cautiously, hoping to convey her harmlessness. Yet, the world often responded with indifference or outright rejection. The sting of being unseen, of being judged for her circumstances rather than her spirit, was a constant companion. She carried the weight of countless slammed doors, averted gazes, and the heartbreaking realization that her longing for a gentle hand, a soft voice, a place to belong, was a dream that seemed to drift further away with each passing day. There were close calls, too, speeding cars that sent her scrambling, larger, more aggressive animals vying for the same scarce resources, and the ever-present threat of the city's animal control officers, whose vans rumbled through the streets like omens. She'd seen other strays disappear into those vans, never to be seen again, and a primal fear kept her wary, always ready to melt back into the shadows. But even in the midst of this daily struggle, Lucy possessed an indomitable spirit. She found small joys, the thrill of chasing a squirrel up an oak tree in a quiet park at dawn, the unexpected discovery of a forgotten tennis ball. It sent a faint echo of happier times, or the comforting presence of the moon on a clear night, a silent sentinel in her solitary world. These fleeting moments were lifelines, reminders that beauty and hope could exist even in the darkest corners. Her fur, a mix of earthy browns and soft tans, often bore the marks of her difficult life. A healing scratch on her muzzle from a territorial cat, a slight limp from a misjudged leap. But her eyes, oh, her eyes. They were deep pools of amber, intelligent and expressive, reflecting a resilience and a yearning that was profoundly touching, if only someone would take the time to truly see. One particularly cold autumn afternoon, as a chill wind whipped fallen leaves into dancing spirals, Lucy's luck, or perhaps her energy, ran out. Exhausted and weak from a prolonged bout of hunger, she had sought refuge in a quiet alley, curled up against a brick wall for a sliver of warmth. It was there that the animal control officer found her, not with malice, but with a weary sigh of professional duty. Lucy was too tired to run, too defeated to resist. She offered only a soft whimper as gentle hands lifted her into the van. The door clanged shut, a sound that seemed to seal her fate, and the city she knew, with all its dangers and its fleeting freedoms, began to recede through the wire mesh of the window. The shelter was a cacophony of sounds and smells. Endless rows of kennels lined the concrete corridors, each holding a story of abandonment, loss, or misfortune. The air thrummed with a chorus of barks, yelps, and whimpers, a symphony of longing and anxiety. The scent of disinfectant cleaner battled with the underlying animal odors, creating an atmosphere that was both sterile and deeply unsettling. Lucy was processed, given a quick examination, a bowl of food she ate with a mixture of gratitude and trepidation, and then led to a small, cold kennel. Her new world was a cage, barely large enough for her to turn around comfortably. A thin blanket lay on the concrete floor, offering little comfort. Through the bars, she could see other dogs, some pacing restlessly, others lying in dejected heaps, their eyes dull with resignation. The shelter staff were kind but overworked, their interactions brief and functional. They provided food and water, cleaned the kennels, but there was little time for the individual attention, the gentle reassurance that Lucy craved. Days blurred into a monotonous routine. The morning clatter of food bowls, the brief walk in a small, enclosed yard, and then long hours spent watching people pass by her kennel. Hope would flicker whenever someone paused, their gaze lingering on her. Lucy would rise, her tail giving a tentative wag, her eyes pleading. She'd press her nose against the bars, offering a soft lick if a hand came near. But more often than not, the people would move on, their voices fading down the corridor, leaving Lucy to sink back on her thin blanket, the spark of hope dimming a little more each time. She became known to the staff as a long-termer. Weeks turned into months. Puppies and smaller, fluffier dogs came and went, their stays brief, their departures joyful. But Lucy, a pit bull mix with the quiet sorrow of the streets still clinging to her, was consistently overlooked. The label pit bull itself often carried an unfair stigma, a preconceived notion that overshadowed her gentle nature. She saw the pity in the eyes of some of the staff member, and she understood, with a chilling certainty, what it meant. Time was running out. In a facility overflowing with unwanted animals, resources were finite. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. If an adopter didn't come soon, her journey, which had begun with such a desperate fight for survival, would end here, not with a loving family, but with a final, quiet procedure. The weight of this understanding settled upon her, a heavy cloak of despair. She ate less. Her hopeful tail wags became less frequent. She spent more time curled in a tight ball, her eyes closed, as if trying to shut out the bleakness of her reality. She was fading, not just physically, but in spirit. The spark that had carried her through the harshness of the streets was flickering, threatening to be extinguished by the cold, impersonal finality of her situation. Then, one ordinary Saturday morning, when the shelter was bustling with weekend visitors, a new sound cut through the usual din, the light, happy chatter of a child. A little girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, with bright, curious eyes and a cascade of sunny blonde hair, walked down the aisle, holding her mother's hand. Her name was Sophie. Sophie wasn't looking for a particular breed or color. She wasn't concerned with age or pedigree. She was looking with her heart. She passed by kennels filled with yapping terriers and regal German shepherds, her gaze sweeping over them with polite interest. And then she stopped. She stopped right in front of Lucy's kennel. Lucy, who had barely lifted her head for the past few visitors, felt a subtle shift in the air. She slowly uncurled, her amber eyes meeting Sophie's clear, blue ones. There was no fear in the little girl's gaze, no hesitation, only a profound and innocent curiosity. Sophie knelt, bringing herself eye level with Lucy. She didn't seem to notice the slightly matted fur, or the way Lucy's ribs showed a little too prominently. She saw something else. Perhaps it was the deep well of sadness in Lucy's eyes, or the flicker of hope that ignited there at Sophie's focused attention. "Hello," Sophie whispered, her small hand reaching out, fingers wiggling tentatively towards the bars. Lucy, drawn by the gentleness in the child's voice, rose slowly and walked to the front of her cage. She sniffed at Sophie's fingers, and then, with infinite care, she licked them. It was a soft, tentative gesture, a question, and an offering all in one. Sophie giggled, a bright, musical sound that seemed to chase away some of the shelter's gloom. "Mommy," she said, her voice firm and full of conviction, her eyes still locked with Lucy's. "This one. I want this one." Sophie's mother, a kind-faced woman, looked at Lucy, then at the information card on the kennel. She saw the breed designation, the length of stay, the subtle warnings in the shelter worker's eyes as she approached them. The worker, a woman named Sarah who had a soft spot for the quiet pit bull, explained Lucy's situation with gentle honesty. She told Sophie's mother that Lucy had been there for a long time, that her chances were dwindling, that if a home wasn't found soon, the shelter would have to make a heartbreaking decision. The words put to sleep hung unspoken but understood in the sterile air. Many parents might have hesitated, might have gently steered their child toward a younger, easier dog. But Sophie's mother saw the undeniable connection between her daughter and this overlooked animal. She saw the trust in Lucy's eyes as she gazed at Sophie, and she saw the unwavering certainty in Sophie's own. There was a quiet conversation, a weighing of responsibilities, but Sophie's simple, heartfelt plea, "She needs us, Mommy. I can feel it," seemed to settle the matter. The adoption process, usually a source of anxiety for shelter animals, felt different for Lucy. There was a lightness in the air, a sense of anticipation. When the kennel door finally swung open, not for a brief cleaning or a lonely walk, but for her to leave, Lucy hesitated for a moment, as if unsure this miracle was real. Sophie, patient and understanding, crouched down and offered her hand. "Come on, girl," she encouraged softly. "You're coming home." The ride in the car was a blur of new sights and smells. Lucy sat quietly on the back seat, Sophie's small hand resting gently on her head, stroking her fur. She leaned into the touch, a low rumble of contentment starting deep in her chest, the first real purr of happiness she'd felt in what seemed like a lifetime. Their house was a haven of warmth and light. It smelled of baking cookies and fresh laundry, so different from the cold, metallic scent of the shelter or the harsh odors of the street. Lucy explored cautiously at first, her nose twitching, her ears swiveling to take in all the new sounds, the ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall, the distant murmur of a television, the cheerful chirping of a bird outside the window. And then she met Cooper. Cooper was the family's other dog, a friendly, slightly goofy golden retriever with a perpetually wagging tail and an exuberant love for life. There was an initial moment of careful sniffing, a sizing up between the two canines. Cooper, ever the gracious host, gave a playful bow and a soft woof, an invitation to friendship. Lucy, still unsure of her place in this new world, responded with a tentative tail wag. Sophie watched, holding her breath, and then smiled as the two dogs began a cautious, then increasingly playful, dance around the living room. The first few days were an adjustment. Lucy was still learning the rules of a home, the rhythm of a family. She was hesitant to jump on the furniture, conditioned by years of having no soft places to rest. She would often look to Sophie for cues, her amber eyes questioning and eager to please. Sophie, with a wisdom beyond her years, was patient and reassuring. She showed Lucy her very own soft bed in the corner of the kitchen, piled high with cozy blankets. She taught her where her food and water bowls were, and celebrated every small milestone. The first time Lucy confidently walked through the house. The first time she initiated play with Cooper. The first time she fell asleep at the foot of Sophie's bed, a furry, contented guardian. The family officially named her Lucy, a name that felt as bright and hopeful as her new beginning. It was a name that signified she was no longer a nameless stray, no longer a number in a shelter, but a cherished member of a loving family. This name was her new identity, a symbol of her resilience, her courage, and the incredible journey that had brought her here. Life for Lucy transformed from a daily struggle for survival into a joyful tapestry of love and companionship. Mornings began not with the harsh clang of a kennel door, but with Sophie's gentle hand stroking her fur, her cheerful voice whispering, "Good morning, Lucy girl." Breakfast was a delicious bowl of kibble, shared alongside Cooper, followed by energetic play sessions in the spacious, fenced backyard. They would chase squirrels, who always seemed to stay just out of reach, tumble in the soft grass, and play tug-of-war with a well-loved rope toy. Sophie and Lucy became inseparable. They were partners in adventure, whether it was exploring the nearby park, its winding trails leading to exciting new smells and sights, or simply snuggling together on the sofa watching cartoons on a rainy afternoon. Lucy, who had once known only the cold indifference of the streets, now basked in the unconditional love of a child. She learned the pure joy of a belly rub, the comfort of a warm lap, the security of knowing she was safe and loved. The family embraced Lucy wholeheartedly. They marveled at her gentle nature, her intelligence, and her unwavering loyalty to Sophie. They took her and Cooper on family outings to the beach, where Lucy discovered the thrill of chasing waves, her barks of delight mixing with Sophie's laughter. They went on hikes in the nearby state park, Lucy and Cooper trotting happily ahead, then circling back to make sure their humans were keeping up. They even had matching bandanas for Lucy and Cooper, stylish little accessories that Sophie would proudly tie around their necks before walks, making them look like the dapper and beloved companions they were. Lucy, who had once been invisible, now turned heads, not because she was a stray, but because she was a beautiful, happy dog, her coat gleaming with health, her eyes shining with contentment. The scars of her past, both physical and emotional, began to fade. The slight limp was barely noticeable, and the fear that had once shadowed her eyes was replaced by a soft, trusting gaze. She learned that hands could be gentle, that voices could be kind, and that a home was not just a place, but a feeling of belonging. She became fiercely protective of Sophie in a gentle, watchful way. If Sophie stumbled, Lucy was there, nudging her softly. If Sophie cried, Lucy would lay her head in her lap, offering silent comfort. Every evening, after dinner, the family would gather in the living room. Lucy would often lie at Sophie's feet, her head resting on the little girl's sneakers, while Cooper snored softly nearby. In these quiet moments, surrounded by the warmth of the fireplace and the gentle murmur of family conversation, Lucy would sigh, a deep, contented sound that spoke volumes of her newfound happiness. She had found her sanctuary, her people, her forever. Lucy's story is a poignant reminder of the countless animals like her, waiting in shelters, their hearts full of hope, their futures uncertain. These are not broken animals. They are animals who have been let down, who have faced hardship, but whose capacity for love and loyalty remains undiminished. They yearn for a second chance, for a kind hand, for a warm bed, for a family to call their own. The bond between Lucy and Sophie was a testament to the incredible power of compassion. Sophie didn't see a pit bull or a stray. She saw a friend. She saw a soul deserving of love. And in giving that love, she not only saved Lucy's life, but enriched her own in ways she couldn't have imagined. This tale is more than just a heartwarming account of a dog and a girl. It's a call to action, a gentle plea to open our hearts and homes to animals in need. When we choose to adopt, we do more than just save a life. We gain an immeasurable gift of unconditional love, unwavering companionship, and the profound satisfaction of knowing we've made a difference. Every wagging tail, every grateful lick, every contented sigh from an adopted pet is a testament to the beauty of second chances. May we all strive to create a world where every animal, like Lucy, finds their Sophie, their safe harbor, their forever home. For our planet is not just a home for humans, but a shared sanctuary for all living beings. And in the gentle eyes of a rescued animal, we often find the purest reflection of love, resilience, an enduring hope for a kinder, more compassionate world. Lucy's journey from the desolate streets to a loving home reminds us that love, indeed, has the power to change everything.